In this video, we're going to review some of the geometry things that you've already learned in the past, and hopefully just touch on a couple things in respect to some of the basic shapes. The first thing I'd like to take a look at is triangles in general. Keep in mind that they're based off of angle measurements, so in the sort of idea of naming or categorizing, there's two ways I can categorize. One is based off of angles. Remember, if it has 3 angles smaller than 90 degrees, it's what's called an acute triangle. If it has 1 right angle, it's what's called a right triangle. And if there is 1 angle larger than 90 degrees, it's what's classified as an obtuse triangle. So the first way it's categorized is based off of angle. The second thing is based off of side length. If they're all 3 different sides, it's what's called scalene. If 2 of the sides are the same length, usually marked by a little mark like that, it's what's called an isosceles triangle. And if all 3 are the same, it's what's called an equilateral. Okay. An equilateral triangle is also what's called equiangular. Basically means if all the sides are the same length, all the angles need to be the exact same as well, and all the angles are actually going to be 60 degrees, which is a good piece of information to know. An isosceles triangle, if the 2 sides are the same, the 2 angles that are directly across from each of those sides are also the same. But their measurement depends on what the measurement of the third angle is. What's also good to know about triangle is that all the angles add to 180 degrees. So what that basically means is if I tell you I have a triangle where this is x degrees, this is going to be 3x degrees, and this angle is going to be 5x degrees. Basically, those 3 angle measurements, x plus 3x plus 5x, need to add up to equal 180. So x plus 3x plus 5x is 9x, because remember there's an unwritten 1 in front of the x. So 9x will equal 180 degrees, so x will end up equaling 20 degrees. What that means going back is this angle here will be 20 degrees. The top angle of 3x will be 3 times that 20, which is 60 degrees, and 5 times x, 5 times 20, will end up being 100 degrees. So just keep in mind that's basically the way angles work in triangles. Anytime I deal with perimeter, I'm dealing with what's the distance around an object. So if, for example, this is x, this is, say, 2x minus 1, and this is 4x plus 2. And I say the perimeter of the triangle is 22. What that basically means is that if I'm to add up all these sides, x plus 2x minus 1 plus 4x plus 2, the sum of all the sides is going to equal 22. So then I go through, okay, once again this is 1x plus 2x, 3x plus 4x is 7x, minus 1 plus 2 is plus 1 is equal to 22. I subtract 1 from both sides. I get 7x is equal to 21. Divide by 7, divide by 7. My x will equal 3. What that means is this side will be 3. 2 times 3 is 6, minus 1 is 5. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 2 is going to give me 14. In reality, this would not work. The reason being is that any 2 sides added together has to equal the fourth or the third side for a triangle. But beyond that, the math in this is correct. So most of the values will be chosen a little bit better. In general, perimeter is always you add up the sides. Okay. So you always have to add the sides. So be careful, if you're given a length and a width. So if the length is 5 and the width is 2, keep in mind, I would go ahead and take the time to draw something out. You're going to find yourself being a lot more successful if you take the extra 2 minutes. Label all the sides, and then picture yourself. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 5 is 12, plus 2 is going to be 14. So the perimeter is going to equal 14. So don't start guessing. Perimeter is always what happens when you add the sides. Area. Area is when I begin to multiply two of the side lengths together. So the most basic is a rectangle or a square. The area is going to give by length times width. So in this case, if it's 5 and 2, area is going to be 5 times 2, which is going to be 10. It's going to be units being squared. Okay. If I take this same shape and just tilt it on its side, this is a parallelogram. Okay. This is a rectangle. Parallelogram is just a rectangle tipped over on its side. Okay. So therefore, it's going to be the same idea of length times width, except for I'm going to say it's base times height. What that means is that I need to have the height has to be perpendicular to a base. And then if the height's 5, the base is 2, the area is given by 5 times 2. Okay. Take the same idea, let's apply it to a triangle. Okay. A triangle is just taking a rectangle, cutting it in half. So the area of a triangle is given by 1/2 base times height. So I'm taking that rectangle, okay, cutting it in half. So in this case, once again, the important thing is to find the base times the height has to meet at a right angle. So if the height is going to be 5, the base is going to be 2, the area is going to be 1/2 of 5 times 2. So most times you multiply the base times the height. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 divided by 2, or cut it in half, is going to be 5 units. And it's going to be squared once again. So this is going to be 10 units being squared. Again, so once again it connects very much with what we've kind of already been working on somewhat. Okay. The last type of shape, which we have not done too much with, is what's called a trapezoid. Okay. Trapezoids are shapes that look like something like this, where it has two different bases. So if I meet this, this is still going to be the height, but this is what's called the base 1, base 2. In order to figure out the trapezoid, what I'm going to do to do the area is I'm going to actually take the two bases, add them together, and then divide it by 2. So basically I'm averaging the lengths of those. And then once I'm done with that, the averaging, then I want to make sure I multiply it by the height. So in this case, if I give you a shape, okay, let's say this is 6, let's say this is 10, and let's say the height is 4. What I'm going to do is 6 plus 10, cut it in half, and then multiply it by 4. So 6 plus 10 is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 times 4 is going to give you an area of 32 units squared. So once again, this formula is basically base times height. It's a four-sided shape, so it's based off of the rectangle. The only problem is because I've got the two different bases, I in a sense need to average those together. So that kind of gives you the areas that you're going to need to know. We're going to go one step further. Operates a little bit differently. Just to review last year, because a circle is round shaped, okay, we can't talk about perimeter, so instead we talk about circumference. A circumference is given by taking pi, or 3.14. Okay, you can use the pi button or you can use 3.14. On standardized tests, you want to make sure you read the directions. For the most part, they'll tell you to use 3.14. And I'm going to multiply it by the diameter. Now be careful. Diameter is the distance going through the center from one side to another. So this whole side is what's called your diameter. Okay. anytime I just do half of the diameter, in other words, the radius, okay, it's called the radius. The diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. So sometimes we'll also say circumference equals 2 times the radius times pi. Usually written as 2 pi r. Okay, and just rearrange the values there. Most times we just say that pi times diameter or 2 pi r. Okay, that's going to be the formula. Area, okay, and you'll notice here I just have the length, one length, either be diameter by radius. I don't multiply them by each other. For area, the area of a circle is given by taking pi times the radius. I'm going to square it. And in other words, I'm going to multiply the radius by itself, r times r. So just like I talked about base times height, length times width, okay, anytime I'm dealing with area, I'm always multiplying two sides together. And that's why I say that's units squared, where for circumference and perimeter, I talk about units. Okay, because if it's 2 inches, it's 2 inches times 2 inches. So I have inches times inches, and in other words, inches squared. But this is what's given for area. So circumference, one-dimensional, is 2 pi r. It's basically the distance around the outside of the circle. If I was to take my pointer and go around it, okay, trace the line on the outside and do a very good job, but you get the idea. Area is how much does it take to fill in that space. So area would be, with my yellow, what would it be to fill in this circle? Okay, the innermost stuff. So that's basically a review of perimeter, of area, kind of crash course in it, but hopefully it's been a good review.